Okay, normally this video would be very different. I'd talk about how Apple announced the new iPhone SE a month ago this week. Talk about my experiences using it since then. Tell you how, despite throwing it in my pocket with keys and other phones, and it sliding off various surfaces with alarming regularity, it was still amazingly scratch and break free. About how I still miss high dynamic range on the rare occasions I watch movies on my phone, but mostly never notice it's LCD and not ultra high density. That I've been spoiled by the iPhone 11 Pro and especially the iPhone 11 Pro Max battery life, which gets me through a day and a half without breaking a sweat or breaking out a charger, while the new SE has me in battery saver mode by dinner time pretty much every evening. How the photos in video are almost as good as the iPhone 11. It just doesn't have as much range, especially as you get into the very low light and night mode, or dynamic range on high frame rate video. And how I do miss the full screen display, gesture navigation, and Face ID of the more recent iPhones, because I love that. But I also see why so many people still love the home button and Touch ID, especially in the age of masks. And now that I'm not wearing gloves when I go outside, or, go outside, I can appreciate it more. Normally, this video would be that, but something else happened when the new iPhone SE came out. Something wonderful and also hella disappointing. See, for years, there have been some in the community who review mainstream products only to complain that they're not also for pros, that actively get upset when every product isn't specifically for them, even if it may be perfect for their parents or kids or significant others. But with the iPhone SE, there was an empathy miracle. Most reviewers who themselves would naturally gravitate towards a $1,200 iPhone Pro Max said that.
I'm excited about it though. I think for $399, it's a really good deal.
I think for most people, not the tech nerds like you and me, just getting access to the Apple ecosystem for $400 is more important than any of those things.
At $399, it was gonna be a great phone for many people who'd resisted the bigger, bulkier, very expensive new iPhone.
Apple essentially just delivered one of the best value phones of the year and in a long time.
It's just an iPhone SE. It's really not meant for enthusiasts, but I'm drawn to it. I gotta be honest, I really like it.
You know, the iPhone SE, it isn't just a good deal, it's a really good phone.
For $400 and 4 to 5 years of making sure that your phone is pretty much in the building and future-proof and up to snuff, you should definitely consider an upgrade.
Can you trust the iPhone SE? Yes.
If you're looking for a fast phone to create some content, stay connected with your friends and family, and do whatever else it is that you're going to be doing on your phone, this is the phone for you.
The iPhone SE isn't just the iPhone for your grandma, it's really the iPhone for almost everyone.
Most, but not all. Because yeah, there was still some pushback. Some established reviewers who implied or outright stated that the iPhone SE wasn't a serious phone. And so, by giving it a positive review, by recommending it for other people when we ourselves would, quote unquote, never be caught dead using it, we were somehow being disingenuous, grading on a curve, lying. Which, as cringe sad as that sentiment may be, it hits me on so many levels. See, I'm a nerd, a geek, a tech head, and I typically buy the highest end gadgets possible and promptly lose myself in every little implementation detail. And for many years, that's what and how I reviewed as well. But I've been working really hard, really conscientiously over the last couple of years to completely change my approach. Because the vast majority of people who buy this stuff just aren't tech heads. They aren't people who get a dozen new phones to look at every year and never carry anything longer than a few weeks. They're people who work very, very hard for their money and have to stretch it as far as possible, who keep their phones 2 to 5 years, who hand them down to other family members, who don't shop based on specs, but on value. They're my family, and if they're not you, they're probably your family too. Your parents, your kids, your significant others. And for the most part, they've been completely underserved by today's tech media. I mean, can you even imagine if this was cars we were talking about? Because yes, all cap yes, that's very literally the advice any petrolhead, Any gearhead worth their humanity card should be giving everyone else in their families and in this world. Even and especially if they've been reviewing Windows since they still had to launch it from the DOS prompt, or they flip laptops like Shake Shack does patties when they still had a lunch hour rush. And you know, it didn't used to be like this. In fact, Walt Mossberg pioneered the personal technology column at the Wall Street Journal just precisely so it wouldn't be like this. That's why when Walt joined me on my new podcast this week, I took the opportunity to ask him all about it. The full audio version is up in your favorite podcast app, or if you have Nebula or the early access tier of my Patreon, and yeah, I've got Patreon, I'm indie now, remember? You can head right on over and watch the entire 40-minute plus conversation right now. Links to everything in the description below. Meanwhile, longest intro ever, I'm Rene Ritchie, and this is the iPhone SE 1 month later. Not really, but kinda.
I think that particularly when reviewing consumer products, tech reviewers, and you're a good one, and there are a number of other good ones, have got to wake up in the morning, said, okay, I'm going to approach this, the testing and the reviewing and the writing, as if I were a normal person. Not a stupid person, not a technophobe, but somebody who couldn't care less how many cores there are in the processor, what the GPU is, how many milliamps they are on the battery. They do care how many hours you can get out of the battery, and I had a very elaborate battery test for one for phones and one for laptops and one for tablets that I concocted myself, because I thought the so-called standard tests were controlled by the industry. And I think there's too little. I think that some of the reviewers have strayed from that. The iPhone SE is a perfect example. This morning I got up and I ordered a red one for my wife, who will only use an iPhone SE, but whose old one is basically dying. And so I immediately ordered her this one. She's actually not so crazy about the 4.7-inch screen. She'd rather it was 4, but she'll take it. And so I ordered one. And she's not going to care at all about the camera. The truth is, the camera is way better than what she's been used to on her old SE. It's an enormous improvement, both optically and, as you know, in terms of the computational photography. She'll be able to do portrait mode, which of course she couldn't do on her old SE. She doesn't care that she doesn't even know what ultra wide angle is. And by the way, my wife is maybe 2x, 3x smarter than me in general on everything. But her attitude toward tech is, and she's not afraid of it. She uses tech all day long. She uses her phone. She uses her Mac. I'm talking about 80, 90% of people. Obviously, it's not like 1991 when there were a lot of people who had never touched a computer. It's much different now. People have much more experience. But I think 90%, 80%, if you really want to be generous, 75% of the people still don't care about these kind of details that maybe you or I might. So, yes, I was well aware, because I read the reviews, I read the spec sheet. I even talked to people at Apple. Even though I'm retired, they still talk to me. So I understood it. It's not unlike what Google did with one of the Pixels, which is stay with one camera, use the software to give it additional depth and features.
It's funny because my mother was a university lecturer. My father was an IBM engineer. My sister is a doctor, and all of them are interested in this phone because all of them like the home button, like the classic home button iPhone. It fits the mental model of what they just want, that phone but better, and they're all 3 times smarter than I am, and none of them ask me about they want to know if it takes good pictures, like all the sort of basic things that you just mentioned.
Exactly. And when you talk about the home button, my wife has occasionally tried to use my 11 Pro, and before that I had a 10, and you know, the gesture system is different. And even somebody like you and I, it takes a day or two to get really comfortable with it. She has no patience for that.
Yes.
She says to me, "Where's the button? Why is this? How do I switch to the next app?" And I said, "Well, there's a little line, and you swipe it, or you move, you can swipe it up and you'll see everything." She says, "I just want the button.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. I don't want this thing. And also it's too big." So, and as you know, the 11 Pro is the smaller one.
Yes.
Of the 3 11s. So, because I'm not a big phone guy myself, but so that's, her point of view. She wants to get on with it. And I think it's so important for reviewers, if they consider this part of their audience, to just, it's hard, but you just got to transform yourself a little bit. And by the way, the worst thing would be to also talk down to those people.
Yes.
Because like you say, they're 3 times smarter than you in many cases, or at least very competent about things you don't know the first thing about. So you don't talk down to them. You just give it to them straight. If it's bad, tell them it's bad. Don't buy it. And here's why. Or if it's great, you tell them it's great. Feel very confident about buying it. Or, as you know, very often it's kind of in the middle. And you say, if you're this kind of person and you care a lot about, I don't know, the screen, this will be okay for you. Or if you care a lot about the screen, this won't be okay for you, whatever it is. But that's the kind of way you approach it.
As for me, I feel the same as I did a month ago, maybe even more. For people who want or need a great value for their phone dollar, especially right now, the iPhone SE is just the best value in phones. And given its headroom and the updates Apple will provide for 4 or 5 more years, I don't think anything else will even come close. Not now, and certainly nowhere nearly for that amount of time to come. Now, if you want to watch the rest of my podcast with Walt, where we talk about reviewing the MacBook Pro versus MacBook Air, privacy in the age of shelter in place, and, oh yeah, what it was like to review the original iPhone in the age of Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs called each of us every day to find out how we were feeling about it that day during the 2 weeks. It was like...
But no spoilers. You'll find the audio version in your favorite podcast app, or you can check out the video version on Nebula and in the early access section of my Patreon at patreon.com/Rene Ritchie. When you sign up, you not only get to see the full video versions of the podcasts right now, you get to see scripts for most of the daily shows before they're even shot, as well as Discord, where we chat about Apple, gear, workflows, and more. And there are even ways to get your name in the description of every video, even in the credits. So, to be more involved in this community and contribute directly to the creation of these videos and future projects, check out patreon.com/Rene Ritchie. And thank you, sincerely, for your support. None of this would be possible without you. Now, hit like, subscribe if you haven't already, ring the bell so we can hang out and chat in the comments for the first hour after the video goes live, and then hit up those comments and let me know, what are your thoughts on the iPhone SE 1 month later, both for you personally and for the people in your life. Thanks for watching, and don't miss all the other super detailed iPhone SE videos I've got right up here, or here, one of those here's, and see you next video.